Let me tell you what a police officer in this country can already do to you tonight, without asking your permission and without needing one single reason. He can pull you over, completely at random. Our Supreme Court settled that decades ago. He can stop you to check your license, your insurance, your sobriety, or the state of your car, and he does not have to suspect you of anything at all. He can run your plate before he's out of the cruiser. He can shine a light through your windows and look at everything in plain view. He can demand your license, your registration, and your insurance. And if you don't produce them, that's a ticket. And since 2018, he can demand a breath sample from you with no grounds whatsoever. Not a smell, not slurred speech, not a weaving car, nothing. That's an enormous amount of power, and every bit of it is his by default. He doesn't ask for any of it because he doesn't have to. So here's the question that ought to be sitting in your mind right now. If he can take all of that for free, why is he asking you anything at all? Because there are exactly three things at a Canadian roadside that he cannot take. Three things that have to be handed over voluntarily by you, in your own words, in the first 90 seconds, or he doesn't get them. And there are three questions, asked in the same order, in the same friendly voice, at stops all over this country tonight, and each one is aimed at exactly one of them. Do you know why I stopped you? Where are you coming from tonight? You don't mind if I take a quick look, do you? Not one of those three is something you are required to answer. Not one word. And the most dangerous thing about all three is precisely how pleasant they are. So tonight I'll take them one at a time, what each one is actually for, why the order they come in is not an accident, and the single answer that handles all three without making you sound like a difficult man. And stay with me right to the end, because there is a fourth thing he'll say, and it comes in the same friendly voice at the same window, usually right after the other three. It is not a question, and you cannot decline it, and refusing carries a $2,000 minimum fine and a criminal record. And here's the cruel part. The people most likely to get that one wrong are the ones who just did the first three right. Saying no 3 times builds a rhythm, and the fourth thing is not a no. That's the part nobody warns you about. And that's the part you actually need. Now, this is not an anti-police video, and I won't have it turned into one. Most officers in this country are decent people doing a job I wouldn't want. And none of what I've described is a dirty trick. It's interviewing, it's taught, and it's taught because it works. It works because you're decent. That's the whole engine of it. I'm Brian Doyle. For 15 years, I worked inside the criminal courts in this country. The interview rooms, the cells, the prep meetings the night before trial. And I'll tell you the thing that never left me. Almost nothing I ever read in a file had been dug out of anybody. It had been handed over cheerfully at the side of a road by somebody trying to be helpful. This is legal education, not legal advice, and I'm not your lawyer. The charter and the criminal code are federal. Document rules are provincial and vary a little. For your own situation, talk to a lawyer where you live, right? 10 seconds on what you actually owe, because it settles half of this. Driving in this country, you must produce your license, your registration or permit, and your proof of insurance. You must give your name and address as the driver. Every province requires it, and failing to produce is a ticket. That is the entire list. Now look at the three questions again, because not one word of what they're asking for appears on it. Question 1. Do you know why I stopped you? What he cannot take, an admission. There is no camera, no database, and no device anywhere that can give him what's inside your head. It only ever comes out of your mouth. And notice what he's done. He hasn't told you why he stopped you. He's asked you to guess. So you start scrolling. Was I a bit over? Is it the plate light? Is it that stop sign back at the corner? And whichever one you land on, you've just told him something he didn't know, in your own words, on camera, before he's proved a single thing. Look at how the coin falls. Guess right, and he has your admission, and there's nothing left to argue about months from now. Guess wrong, and he's just learned about a second thing you were worried about. Say nothing useful, and he tells you the reason himself, which he was always going to have to do, because a ticket has to say what you did. There is no version of that question you come out of ahead. That's what makes it such a good question. Question 2. Where are you coming from tonight? What he cannot take, your movements. And this one isn't after a confession at all. It's after two different things, and the second is the one nobody sees. The first is inconsistency. You answer honestly, and 40 seconds later it comes back around. So you said you were at your sister's? And you weren't. You were at your sister-in-law's, and you correct yourself. That's not lying. That's what memory does at 11 at night with headlights in your face. But in a report, it becomes vague, or inconsistent, or unclear account of travel. And you cannot beat it by being more accurate because a longer answer simply has more surface to be wrong about. The second thing is time, and this is the one that matters most in this country. That stop was authorized for a reason. Everything he does is supposed to stay tied to that reason, and our courts have been clear that a traffic stop is not a license to go looking for something else. A stop about a plate light has a natural life of a few minutes, but a friendly chat extends it, minute by minute, and a court looking back at it later will see a driver who was happily talking, not a man being held past the purpose of his own stop. Every answer you give buys him time he didn't otherwise have, and it launders it into a conversation you agreed to. Question 3, and this is the one that can never be repaired afterwards. You don't mind if I take a quick look, do you? What he cannot take: a search. There is no general power in this country to go through your vehicle at a traffic stop. He needs a warrant or a search connected to a lawful arrest or a genuine emergency, or your yes, and listen to the shape of that sentence. It isn't, "I am searching your vehicle." It's a negative question with the answer already tucked inside it, delivered casually, usually while he's already half looking, which tells you something enormous. An officer who has the power does not negotiate for it. If he's asking, either he has grounds and doesn't need you, or he hasn't got them, and you are the only route he's got. Now, here's the part specific to us, and it's important. Our courts have said that for consent to actually count, you have to understand what you're agreeing to and understand that you were free to refuse. Read that again. The whole thing depends on you not knowing you could say no. And here's why this question is different in kind from the other two. If he searches on grounds, those grounds exist somewhere, in his notes, on the body camera, in the record. And every one of them can be looked at afterwards by somebody whose actual job is to look at exactly that. If he searches because you said yes, there is nothing to examine. No grounds were needed, so none were written down. The question of whether he was ever entitled to be in your trunk simply never arises, because you settled it for him in 3 seconds at the side of a road. So the argument you might have had isn't weakened. It's gone. It was never available. Which is exactly why the most consequential sentence of the entire night is delivered in the most casual voice of the entire night. Now put the 3 side by side, because the order is the technique and almost nobody sees it. They ascend in value. The admission is cheap. He'll get one from most drivers. The story is worth more. The consent is the jackpot. And each one makes the next one more likely. That's the whole design. A man who has just answered 2 friendly questions is in a rhythm of answering. He has established out loud that he's a cooperative person with nothing to hide, and then the 3rd question arrives, phrased so that refusing it would be the first uncooperative thing he's done all night. So understand what that means. The real damage of question 1 isn't the admission, it's that it sets the pattern. By the time the important question comes, you've already agreed twice. And saying no now feels like a reversal, which is why the answer has to be one answer given once at the very start. Now, everything I cover here, plus the doorstep, the breath demand, your name on the street, and what happens in the hours after any of it goes sideways, I've put into one short plain English guide for Canada. It's called the Know Your Rights Handbook. No hard sell. If this has been useful, the link's in the description whenever you want it. Right. The answer. 4 clauses, and the 4th one is there for a reason. I'll explain in a minute. Here's everything you're entitled to, officer. I'd rather not answer questions, and I don't consent to a search. But if you're making a demand, say so and I'll comply right away. Take it apart. Here's everything you're entitled to. Documents first, deliberately first. You have done the entire compulsory list before you've declined anything, which means the first thing on that recording is you cooperating fully. Nobody can call that obstructive. I'd rather not answer questions. A preference, calmly stated. Not a refusal, not a speech, no section numbers. And it covers questions 1 and 2 at once, so you never have to work out at 11 at night which of the 2 you're being asked. And I don't consent to a search, said once clearly, out loud. That closes the only door you control. If he has grounds, he'll search anyway, and it's lawful, and you must not interfere. But now he has to have them, and he has to be able to say what they were. But if you're making a demand, say so, and I'll comply right away. And this is the clause that doesn't exist in any version of this advice you'll find from outside this country. and it's the one that keeps you out of a cell. I'll come to it in 90 seconds. Here's the whole thing as one moment. Lights behind you, shoulder, engine off, interior light on, hands on the wheel. Evening. Do you know why I stopped you? Here's my license, registration, and insurance. I'd rather not answer questions. Where you coming from tonight? I'd rather not get into it. You don't mind if I take a quick look in the back, do you? I don't consent to a search. But if you're making a demand, say so, and I'll comply right away. And one of two things happens, and both are better than the conversation you were about to have. Either he names something real immediately, and you comply completely and challenge it later. Or your documents come back and you're told to get the light fixed, which tells you there was nothing there, and the only route he had was the one you just closed. Now, the fourth thing. Because after those three, in the same friendly voice, at the same window, very often comes this. I'm making a demand for a breath sample. That is not a question. There is no version of it you're entitled to decline. Since December of 2018, an officer who has lawfully stopped you and has a screening device with him can demand that sample with no grounds at all, and refusing carries a minimum $2,000 fine, a driving prohibition, and a criminal record. It's built deliberately to be no better than blowing over, so there is no arithmetic in which refusing wins. And now look at what the previous 90 seconds have done to you. You've said no 3 times, politely, correctly, exactly as I taught you. And you are now in a rhythm, feeling rather good about yourself, with the word no loaded and ready. And the fourth thing is not a no. This is why people who half learn this material end up worse off than people who never watched anything. Because I'm not answering questions and I want to speak to my lawyer first is a perfectly sound sentence at questions 1, 2, and 3 us, and at the breath demand, at the roadside, it is a refusal and it will be charged as one. Our courts have held the right to counsel is suspended for that specific test because a test you get to postpone isn't a test. So that fourth clause in your answer is doing real work. By saying, if you're making a demand, say so and I'll comply right away. You've drawn the line yourself, in advance, on camera, before the moment arrives. You've told everybody exactly where your cooperation stops being optional, and you've made it impossible for anybody to characterize your 3 no's as defiance. 3 things he has to ask for. 1 thing he simply takes. Know which is which. And if you're ever told you are being detained or arrested, 1 sentence replaces every other sentence in this video. I want to speak to a lawyer, immediately, out loud. Once you're arrested, that right is full and immediate. Duty counsel is free in every province at any hour. And then nothing else about the case. Not in the cruiser, not in the hallway. So let's bring it home. He can stop you for nothing, run your plate, look through your windows, and demand your documents and a breath sample without a shred of justification. 3 things he cannot take. An admission, your movements, a search. 3 questions, in ascending order of value, each one making the next more likely, which is why you answer once, at the start, and not 3 times. Here's everything you're entitled to, officer. I'd rather not answer questions and I don't consent to a search, but if you're making a demand, say so and I'll comply right away. Then stop talking. Don't explain why. Don't apologize for it. And don't fill the silence afterwards, because the silence afterwards is the last part of the technique. If this helped you, have a look at the pinned comment where I've written that answer out, and send it to one person you care about who drives. Because the person these 3 questions work best on isn't the one with something to hide. It's the polite one. The one who'd never dream of being rude to somebody in uniform at 11 at night. Subscribe, because every week I take 1 more of these apart in plain English. I'm Brian Doyle. 3 he has to ask for. 1 he doesn't. I'll see you in the next one.